Somewhat. All right. So there's definitely going to be a couple tools that we use more than others on here. Most likely, our two main ones will be the stone outline, um, the stone outline with contour, and then our stone knockout. It works better for you than me. All right. Well, hopefully after today, it'll be working a little bit better for you too. All right, so the top one, the first option we have is the contour punch out. So that one is going to be pretty basic. What that's going to do for us, and let me pull up. Let's go to our clip art. And we can just go ahead and grab like a soccer ball. Alright, so the contour punch out, what that's going to do is anytime we have, let's say, a live text, and a lot of the designs, they might be set up something like this. Oops. So let's apply that. So we have our text now. And we'll go ahead and edit that just so it looks like more like a normal design. Let's go ahead and use one of our game day ones. So you might see a design set up like this. Now a lot of times the contour might be white like this, so it's going to show it pretty much cut out as it, you know, if we were to use like the boundary tool down here to edit this, that's kind of what this knockout is going to look like for us already. So, or this contour is going to look like already. So again, it's a white contour. I'll just give it a little bit of color just so we can see it. But what the contour punch out will do for us is when we select that contour, wherever that contour is, we'll just go through the object behind it. So with that one click, it's actually breaking apart that contour, selecting the object behind it, and then subtracting it through there. So what's cool about this is like when you do it this way, you can kind of set up your design and adjust the contour, and once you like the distance of the contour, you just select that contour punch out, and it's just going to subtract that right through the soccer ball. So instead of, you know, a lot of times you'll actually see us when we're designing, because it's, you know, it's sometimes this, you know, contour might give us some issues, or contour punch out, it's only going to work with one object. So if I had two soccer balls behind this design and I select contour punch out, nothing will happen to that object behind it. So that's the big difference from this contour punch out instead of like a boundary tool. Now if we were using the boundary tool for this, we would have to get rid of this contour anyways. So let's just pretend that contour isn't there. So this boundary tool, when I select remove shades behind, we'll adjust that to like 0.1. Select our text, magic boundary. That's going to go through both objects, or any object that's behind the text or, you know, clip art that you have selected. So if I wanted to get rid of everything behind this black soccer ball now, I could do that too, and it would cut through that gold one just like that. Now it wouldn't affect the Lakewood Ranch text because that's in front of it. So we had a question. So when would this be a better choice than the magic boundary? So pretty much if your design is just set up as maybe, you know, one color or one design like this where it has a contour and only one object behind it, that's when you can use the magic contour, the magic tab, and use the contour punch out, because you only need it to go through that one object. Now, if you had multiple layers or like other, if your design said anything else on it or had any other features behind it and you wanted those trimmed too, then it would probably just make sense to get rid of the contour and use the magic boundary. That way it got rid of everything. Also, if your design doesn't have a contour around it, then the contour punch out isn't going to do anything. So that's, you can always add a contour yourself though. So it's not like it doesn't, just because it doesn't have one, you can't add it. But there might be times where they're already, set up where it doesn't actually have a contour around the original like text field. Do you have to select the ball when you select? Nope, you're only going to select the object that has, or text or object that has the contour punch out. So it might be, different, like the ball might be on top and the soccer ball has a contour around it. So it might be, set up something like this too. So the contour punch out doesn't have to start as, an object can have a contour around it too, and it will still work. But you're only selecting the piece that has the contour itself. And it just did that when I clicked it because I didn't pre-weld that text. So any other questions on our contour punch out? Alright, so our next one is the stone outline. So this button gets a little, the confusion in this button is pretty much that if we have just a solid, or just like a object like this soccer ball, or even our text here, let's go ahead and just weld that now. It does sound like, you can just select this outline. And let's get rid of this real quick. Or select this object, whatever you want. And this is like a one-click button to add a stone outline around it. It can somewhat do that. If you hit stone outline here, you will see how it adds a row of stone around your design. But it also puts this kind of circle. It would just be, because it's a perfect circle with our soccer ball, that's why it's a perfect circle here. But it puts this circle around our design too. And then it's almost like the stones are laid out outside of our circle. So it does actually, somewhat outline your object with stones, but it's not exactly what we're looking for. And we'd want it more, and we can go back and select the soccer ball and, just make it a little bit bigger. And then it is almost, directly outlining our soccer ball now. And then I can get rid of this boundary and I'm good to go. But we don't want to have to do that. And that's not exactly what this tool is meant for. What it's meant for is when we have two objects or multiple objects overlapping each other. So if I have my design set up like this, and let's give it a different color so we can see how the layers are actually set up here. So you can see how my soccer ball right now is layered on top of my text, right? So if I select the soccer ball now, and now I select stone outline, it puts the stones right around the soccer ball, and then it also trims the text that was in the way. So this tool is meant for more like accenting designs that might, you just want a quick stone outline around it, but have like other components to it. So one of the designs you'll see us use it on a lot. Let's go to our live templates. So any of these designs, like your sports designs that have like a, just any type of sports clip art or anything like that in it, that's where this tool will really help and add, value to your t-shirts or garment just with a, click of a button. So this tool really saves us time. So I'll open up like a design like this. And now one thing when we use any of these buttons, we need to make sure that, like if in this case we're working with the live template, we need to make sure that our design is pretty much cut ready or has been edited to the point where there's no more like contours or live text in our design. Right? So what I mean by that is this is our 3-color live text. So we've, the first, I think either the first or second class we did with this overview, we went over the difference in all the live text and then how to get those cut ready. So by looking at our Pirates text, what type of, text are we looking for or looking at, and what button would we use to get this cut ready? And we can just pretend that I've already gone through and I've changed, like, I want it to say Braden River Pirates in soccer. So I'm not going to run through the editing, but more of, this is what they wanted, and now we need to get it, we want to add some stones to it. All right, yeah, so a couple of you got it. 3-color, merge 3-color live text button. Perfect. So, yep, you guys are killing it. So that's our 3-color live text here. So the white and the red in this design are around my Pirates text. Those are contours. So again, these buttons won't work correctly if there's contours in your design. Same like how the magic boundary won't work. So remember, if I have this soccer ball and I hit magic boundary and part of my design disappears like that, that's because I have a contour somewhere. So I'm going to hit undo, and then our Pirates text, I'm going to highlight that section and hit merge 3-color live text. All right, so now that's been trimmed out, and that gets rid of all my contours. All right, so this is what's great about this stone outline, and we kind of went over it already with one of the designs, I think, when we were using the pricing calculator. So what I want to show you next is, this is why this tool it's so nice. It's a 1-click button. It probably saves us anywhere from like 8 to 12 steps, because right now it's on the back layer. You can see how it's behind everything, right? So 1, it doesn't matter what layer it's on. 2, it's going to, if I try to normally add rhinestones around a vector like this, if I don't create a boundary first, what's going to be probably my error that I'm going to get, or maybe not even an error, but what's going to be my problem with this type of design? Exactly, it's going to fill the insides too. So if I go to place and fill and I say I want stones to the outside, so 1 island, 1 row of stones, I have auto selected, add stones, auto here. If I select island fill now, and let's just select a different color, so when I go to clear my stones or clear my path, you'll see how it has these filled on the inside too. So if we just wanted that row to the outside, what we'd actually want to do with a design like this is first create a boundary. That's going to put a boundary around our design. Then I can select island fill, and that way it won't get rid or fill all these little inside parts. Now if you want those filled, you don't have to create a boundary, but if you're just wanting it to the outside, you'd actually have to add a boundary first, and then it won't, kind of fill these inside parts. Because when the software is looking at a design like this, the blue is everywhere the blue is considered inside, and then so this part here is considered the inside. So this is the outside to it, and this is the outside. So it's gonna want to fill the inside, cavities too, because technically it's seeing it as, outside of it. So you'll get, the perfect circle around it, but then also inside all these cavities. So what's the difference between a boundary and a contour? So a boundary is just going to go around your object. So, and you're not going to be able, it's not going to necessarily like be part of your design. So if I, let's say I write out an actual text, or let me just borrow this here. So if I have this pirates text and I create a boundary around it, this is my boundary that it just created. So it won't fill in any crevices on the inside of it. It just automatically fills it like that. And I'm not able to adjust the like outside or width, or I can't change this boundary at all. So, and also if I wanted to change the text pirates to anything, it wouldn't, the boundary wouldn't move with it or change with it. When I add like a contour around an object, especially like a live text, one, you have more control over it because you can set how big the bound or the contour is. So you have a lot more control over it. So if it's small enough, it won't fill those inside kind of cavities. If it's, you can make it large enough that it can though. And then if this was like a live text, if I edited like even a node out here, the contour is going to move with it. If I have my original design, let's move this to the back. Oh, I moved it. But if I had my design still there, I wouldn't be able to, the contour wouldn't move with it. Yeah, so the contours, until they're like completely broken apart, they're gonna continue to move with it. But once you hit like break contour group apart, now if I were to make any changes, the contour won't move with it. So that's how our live, with the live text and stuff, when we put a contour around an object, that's because it will change with it. Alright, so that's again this step here when we go back to our magic tab and our stone outline. It's creating our design, putting stones around it, and then also first it's creating that boundary around it, then placing stones. But what it's also doing too is I enlarged the soccer ball just so it would overlap these parts, and I moved it to the back layer. So with one click of the stone outline, it's gonna move that soccer ball to the top layer, so we don't have to manually do it. And then it's gonna trim the area around your design that would overlap with the stones. So you can see now there's no overlaps with the stones. It cuts that perfect area right around it. So that's why this stone outline's so nice. And now, kind of like with our pricing calculator, what we showed the other day, is let's say, they want this design in glitter vinyl. Then we have our design here, and we'll make that with the black, and then we'll make our stones crystal. So with this type of design here, just with, let's see, probably about 10 cents or less of stones, okay, 20 cents, we're going to add at least $5 in value to our t-shirt. Alright, so something that simple, and now just, makes it pop a little bit more too. So with that, does that stone outline button make a little more sense now? So when you have just an object like your soccer ball, like I was showing you in the beginning, the reason if you're getting that circle around it, let's get rid of. So if you just have one object and you hit the stone outline and it does that, the reason it's putting this circle around it is because that's the area that it would trim. Or this is like kind of where your stones would be, and then it would trim everything around it. But because there's nothing to trim, it like throws it off, and this is like kind of the results we get. So could we add stones around the word pirates with that button? So yes. Now the only thing is, so if you had like the word pirates here, let's say this is just normal. So the issue with that is you would need enough like room to still have a contour. Like it's probably going to completely change the look. So you can see what happens, but see how small that contour it leaves us now. So it put stones around it for us and trimmed everything, but because that outline isn't really that thick, it's gonna, this red is the only part that would be like left, just this really thin red line. All right, cool. So the next is the stone knockout. So before we get into the stone knockout, do we all know what a regular knockout is? Could you make the contour thicker? Yes, you could. So yeah, you could come back and adjust the contour, but it's only going to, we'd have to go back until we haven't edited it at all. I don't know if it's going to go back that far for us. Oh, yes it will. Okay, so when we originally brought it in, you could change or adjust the contour so it would be bigger, but once you do that, then the rest of your template can kind of go, not look as good. And if this piece, since it's not welded, we can move it now, but it could, like if these, like how these pieces are welded, sometimes it throws off your design and you're doing a lot of like editing. So technically you could, but just depending on how the design was already set up for you. So now if we broke that apart, I'm just gonna break this one and delete it. So if I had this part here, did a stone outline now, that's gonna make that contour a little bit thicker for us. But I'll show you in a second a tool that we can do anyways that's gonna do all that kind of one button for us anyway. So we actually, we'll just skip to it now. So with this like Pirates design, I could actually just get rid of that layer. So I just have the one layer now. And down here we have this stone outline with contour. So when we're working with text, now this one's already, set up with inside a like live template and stuff like that. So it's not going to probably look as good as, if we started from scratch. But this stone outline with contour button, that's going to actually place stones around your design and give you a contour. So that's already going to do that. So kind of you can almost get rid of all those other layers and just start with the original, Pirates with nothing behind it. And that would pretty much give you that look you're going for. Yeah, this would need some stone or some work on the stones for sure. Yeah, yeah. Because of the placement on these, there's definitely going to be some overlaps. But you know, that's when we have all the features down here to clean those up for us, and we'll go through a full design like that. All right. So our next button is the stone knockout. On the edit tab, we have the actual knockout button without stones. Have you guys used that before? You know, are you familiar with the knockout button at all? All right, cool. So a little yes, yes, no. Okay. So let's go ahead and we'll set up a design. So we're just going to do 2 text fields. Go over here, find text, and we'll just do all. So when we're working with the knockout, and I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna flip over to the edit tab real quick, just so we can go over just the knockout, and then we'll get into the knockout with stones. So anytime we're creating a knockout, and the word knockout can kind of get a little confusing. When we talk about like a knockout design, this is we're talking about this feature. Sometimes what we'll say is like, okay, like kind of with the boundary tool, once we use that stone outline button, it's going to knock out all the area around it. So it's kind of like sometimes that word can get a little confusing, or we think of, you know, one thing when we mean another, or, you know, so when we say knockout design or the knockout feature, this is kind of what we're talking about. All right, so we're going to come here. So when we're creating a knockout design, we want to use, first of all, we want to use like a thicker font behind it. Like, you know, impact, like you can see here, that's going to be what I'm going to use. College is a thick, like the college block font is a thick font, but it has a lot of gaps in it too because of the way it's shaped. So what I mean by that is this is our design in impact, and if I went down to college, like all these areas just have a little bit more of a gap in them because of how some of these, like the L and stuff, have like a lot bigger gap here than between this L and E. So it's just little things like that. So although it is a thicker font, we want to try to do something more like this impact style. All right, so next you can kind of see how there are some gaps between these letters, and that's normal with, you know, any font. But when we're working with a knockout design, we're actually gonna want to bring in those letters. So I don't mean just kind of like scrunching it up like this. We want to use the text spacing tool. So that when we click these, we have the 2 arrows going towards each other. That's going to decrease the character spacing. So if you kind of focus on the text boxes right now, you can see how those letters are getting closer, and they actually start to kind of overlap a little bit. So we don't need to go, you know, that much, but, you know, something like this is pretty good. One thing we want to look for is like little areas like this. So at that point, you kind of either want to space it a little bit more so it has a bigger gap, or you just want to kind of close those out completely. All right, so now once we have that set up, make it just a little bit taller. So at this point, with the knockout's going to read 2 objects at once. So you can't have, you know, multiple layers or objects on here. Right now, we have 2 objects. We have the Eagles text and the baseball text. What I'm going to do next is add artwork, and I'm going to go to the clip art folder, search baseball, go ahead and grab this guy swinging his bat. So this would now be our third color or layer. So with the knockout, it's only going to read two objects at once. So this text behind it, we can do two different things with it. One, we can weld it all together so it's just one. Or if I want it to actually remain like the two different colors in the back, I need to group those together. So it could be like, you could have three text boxes that you want to kind of go through, but they all have to either be welded or grouped together, so it's only seeing it as one object. Right, does that make sense? So now we have this as one, and then this is, even though it's two, you can see it's grouped together, it's only reading it as one right now. All right, so if you want those, different colors, that's how we need to do it. Otherwise, if it's all going to be one color in the back, you can just weld it, and then that makes it really easy. All right, so at this point, I'm just have my baseball player layered on top. I'm going to select both of these. So I have my Eagles and baseball that's grouped as one, and then our baseball player. And let's adjust this to about 0.05. And I'm going to left click the knockout button. So where that baseball player was, it's going to trim out that 0.5. That's that area that it's going to trim out. And that's what we call like an actual knockout design. Now, one thing I didn't do is weld this baseball beforehand or the Eagles text, so that's kind of why you see these bad areas there. But I can go back and just weld it now, and that will fix that. So that's, that's when we say a knockout design. This is a knockout design. When we say it like knocks out the area around it, we're more talking about like trimming the area like around our design like that. All right, so if my baseball player, let's say I set him up this way, and I'm just going to weld this as one color now. So with my design like this, if I highlight, and let's just make a copy so I don't have to do it again here. So we had a question. So you weld the text, then group words together, then then knock out the design with the baseball. So you either have to weld or group. You're not going to do, once you weld something, you can't, it's already like, it's reading it all as one object. So when I was saying, let's go back like this design here. So this Eagles and baseball, this text is grouped together. It's not welded. So I can come up and I can come here and ungroup it and then move it if I wanted to. But for the knockout purposes, this needs to read as one. So I would group it together and then place my design on top. I'm not welding any, I don't need to group all three of these, but we do need to select them, and then I can just hit knockout. Or you can just, on this example, I just welded the text behind it together instead of grouping it. That way, because all the group allows us to do is make these all like different colors. But if I wanted the Eagles and baseball to be the same color, you might as well just weld it. All right. So this is our next issue that we'll run into with the knockout. So here I made my baseball player a little bit bigger than our text. And now again, I've welded these already together in this example. All right, so if I left click my knockout, anywhere where this baseball player wasn't overlapping with the text behind it, it gets cut off. All right, so if that's the case and you want to still keep the baseball bat and those feet down here, you can select the same design and you can right click the KO button. So if you right click it, it will fill any area that's not overlapping too. Now it will make these two separate pieces, so you'll want to go in and just like weld those back together, but it will make like the inside and then everything else one piece, or two, like it will separate the outside and the inside as one. So you'll just need to go back and weld it, and then you know you can adjust the color scheme however you want. All right, so that's just the difference between a left and a right click. All right, just be careful with that though, because even in some smaller areas it will fill. So like even like this isn't too bad here, but in every crevice that's like not really overlapping, like in here it gets a little bit tiny. So in this case there's really not too many bad places, but just kind of go through your design. Maybe even like something like this might be a little bit smaller if we're working with glitter, and you might just want to like, you know, remove those out. But otherwise, that's how, you know, any piece that's overlapping, we just right click. Is this the scenario a few weeks ago when you were dividing an object in half? Was that a knockout? No, that I think was the split feature. Yeah, that's the split feature. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but that's a little bit different, and we'll go through that though. So the knockout is just gonna, you know, when you have two objects layered on top of each other, it's just gonna select that top object and kind of do an intersect and then clear all the overlapping areas. All right, so let's go back. We have our design here. Make this a little bit smaller. All right, so now we're going to go back to the magic tab. All right, so now we know what the knockout does, how to use it. So this button, our stone knockout, that's going to do the same thing, but just add a row of rhinestones around it. All right, now the only difference with this stone knockout button is there's no right click. So if your design, if your baseball player is extending outside of it, it won't matter. So if you do stone out knockout, and this is the part that I don't necessarily, so it will kind of capture that because it goes around the whole object, but it won't grab these little other pieces. So I try to, when I'm doing a stone knockout, I try to kind of fit the design more inside of it. So when I do the stone knockout, it follows more of just the, you know, the actual blue inside. Now with this stone knockout button too, what it doesn't do is any overlapping stones. So we got like a couple here. It's not gonna get rid of those or anything like that, where you still need to go back and edit that. All right, and the reason we kind of set it up that way is because there are times where even like a place like this, it's overlapping, but really just a little bit of a nudge will fix that. If we told it to any overlapping stones to get rid of like the top layer, it ends up leaving like a lot of gaps through your design. So it's almost easier just to select one rhinestone, select them all the same size or all the same color if they're, you know, but that will select the blue there too. So we want to probably do all the same size, which is this button here, and then select our mark top overlapping stones. So it's going to mark them all red for us. Those are all our overlapping stones. So again, I can just kind of move that one, nudge that one, turn that back to blue. When it's when you don't see anything touching it, it's a straight overlap. So we'd want to actually just click delete on that one. Same here, there's no stone actually touching it that you can see. So that means it's literally right behind it. So we'll kind of nudge these two. And then that would finish off our rhinestone knockout. All right, so any questions on the stone knockout? Awesome. All right, cool. All right, so the next one down is the stone outline with contour. So we kind of showed you real quick with that Pirates design. But this, is great for like text, adding just a little bit to like a text field. So let's do, we'll just do the word like soccer. Game day. So I could just, make my design like that. Let's go ahead and just edit it real quick. So we'll go to the text spacing tab. Now I'm just going to select that and just nudge it over a bit. Or actually, we can just hit the break too, and then I can just move it over that way. I'm going to just move the S just like that. Alright, so now that I have my design set up, we'll go back to our Magic tab. And this is just, again, it's just going to add an outline of rhinestones and then a contour too. So with one click, it's going to add a nice row of rhinestones around our design and then a contour color to the outside. Alright, but just like our knockout, we're not finished at this point. We need to select a stone, select all the same size, mark our top layer red. That's going to select all of our overlapping stones. And then with this one, we can kind of just drag it out, hit delete. And then we'll probably need to go through and maybe just edit a few spots now. All right, so this is where we're going to use a couple different tools we have in the software. So this one here, I just moved that stone up, and that put a big gap between our next stones. So here I can select this stone, I can hold shift, and then select the next few stones on this path. And down here at the bottom, next to the clear path, we have our respace. So I'm just going to hit that, and it's going to respace the amount of distance between each one of those stones. If there's a big distance, I can hit the up arrow, just like that, and add an extra stone to that row so it looks like the rest of my design. So that's how we kind of go through and just do some fixes with our design here. So this one I can probably just like move over a tad, and that helps line those up. Here we probably have just enough to just drop one in there without doing too many edits. And then, stuff like this, we would just maybe nudge it because there's not enough room for two. So again, same thing there. And this one, instead of doing a big respace, I'm just going to nudge those ones a bit and just drop one in there. Here we'll just kind of nudge that, and then I'd probably just kind of make this more in the center of the line, coming up that way. Here I can just add one, move that over, and then I would just kind of center those off again. Alright, so it will have some overlapping stones to begin with, but it should at that point, once we kind of remove all those out, it should just take a couple minutes just to kind of finish those. So any questions on our stone outline with contour? Yeah, we can definitely. Now, like an area like this, you can have stones over. Yeah, that does look a little off in there, but you can have the stones overlapping a little bit like that. That's going to be okay. The stones itself are right now bigger than the actual stone you'll use because we're cutting a circle big enough for the stone to brush into. So even if it's a small overlap like this, let's say that was the original stone size, that would still be okay. But this is going to be the actual stone size. And you can see that it's barely overlapping at that point. Alright, cool. Alright, so the next button's super easy. The window decal. All this is a quick window decal that's already set up as a live template. We had a question. Could you add stones to the inside of the E? Yeah, you could just manually drop a couple inside there. No problem with that. Alright, so the window decal is just what you see here. It's going to give you just a window or a decal size design, and it's going to be set up as a live template. So where it says team name here, you can come in here and just, retype Lakewood. If you're changing the sport, you can, and the number, and then the mascot, you could just type out Mustangs. And this is just like a one color decal sized at 6.8 by almost 6.8. Alright, so there's nothing, not really like a feature like these other ones. This is just a quick window decal that you could then come in, switch the artwork and, customize it. We were just getting a lot of requests with like a decal, so we just made it super easy with this button. All right, and any part of this design you don't want, you can get rid of. So, like, not every sport has a, necessarily like a position, or a number maybe. So, or you could get rid of the position and move the number, inside a cavity like that, or move it on top of this part here and, subtract it through eventually. So you can adjust these live templates, however you want. So if there's ever anything on these designs that, maybe doesn't apply, or you just don't like that in the design, or there's no need for it, you can always, get rid of those. But remember to save as and don't override the live template. So this wouldn't actually, when you're using this button here, it would never override this window decal. So it almost just puts it like on. It would just keep every time you push it, it would just layer on top of it. So this isn't actually this. You almost like couldn't save over this, which makes it really nice. Alright, so our last one is our magic text button, and this is one we don't use too often. Let me see if I have this pack. Oh, that's weird. Do you individually click each stone to respace? So when I did that respace, while this is loading, I'll kind of just talk over it. When I did the respace on that last design, you have to select. So let's say, let me just drop a couple stones. I'll show you that real quick. So let's say I had some stones like this, and I want to respace them so all the stones on here are equal spacing, and maybe I want to add some more stones in this row to make it, you know, completely stoned out so there's no gaps or anything. So at this point, you don't have to like individually move each one like that. You will have to hold, you'll start at one end, hold shift, and just make your way. And now I'm just left clicking each stone. So now when I click this respace button here, it'll put all those on like a path or a line, and it'll put equal distance. No, you don't necessarily want to lasso them all, because sometimes with that, you need to kind of go in a line. And I just don't want it to throw, sometimes with the lasso it can throw that off sometimes. So this way ensures that you almost, you know, you have like a line for it. So you're just gonna, you can start this way and work your way up, you know, any direction, but you just don't want to kind of bounce around to, you know, just selecting a bunch of random stones, because then when you hit the respace, you know, it gave me an error like that. So you don't want to, you know, do something like that. You just want to hop, you know, stay in the, you know, either left to right, up or down, and just kind of work your way through it. Hold shift. That's going to let you select multiple objects. Respace. Now once it's on this line, you can hit on the up arrow, and that's why I was saying you can kind of fill those in with stones if you wanted to. Now once you click off this, if you click back on the stone or the row and hit up, it's adding lines, not stones, to that. So the minute you kind of unselect it all or select off of it, it kind of lets go of that path, and if you wanted to adjust it, you'd almost have to reselect all those, hit the respace, and then you could add or subtract stones to it. So I think this one has a good example for our next feature. So I'm just open that up real quick. Yeah, this one here. All right. All right, so with this last feature on our magic tab, we have this magic text. So there's sometimes where we'll have a design like this where, like the word faith here, it has a contour around the outside, and then like this object, you know, it's white, but it's actually, you know, it's a layer there, and then it has a contour around the text. But the text, you know, the contour matches the object behind it. So with this, when you have like a design set up like this is why this button doesn't get used that much. It, you know, it works on kind of designs that are set up this way. But this is where you can select this design, hit Weld, Magic Text. And what that actually does is this area now, if I put a background on it, it subtracts that white layer through, and with like one click it welds this contour that we had to our design. So this is all one object now. So I'll go back again. So again, our design right now, keep going. Okay. Yeah, we have that fill color. We just have it set up to white, but it already is, you know, that contour matches the color behind it and is set up. Magic, we have Weld selected, Magic Text. this layer inside is now completely removed, and it welds it to the object behind it. So that saves us a lot of time. It saves us from, without that button, essentially what we're doing would be, and I'll just leave the color so we can see it, but you'd be breaking apart the contour, and then this area here, well, once you did that, you'd actually need to select this part, select the piece behind it, weld that together, then select this layer, select the layer behind it, back minus front, and it's just doing that thing that Corel does sometimes, but it would actually trim it out like that. All right, so this is a pretty cool button. It just you won't use it on every design just because every design's not set up. Most of them aren't set up this way. Now the remove shapes behind, what that does for us is, and I set this contour a little bit bigger than it needs to be. So let's set this maybe 0.08. This will trim the area around it, but it will, and then it removes the inside. So it doesn't, even though it says weld, it doesn't weld it together, but it trims that out and then subtracts that through. So to kind of, depending on how you want that finished look, you can just uncheck this contour and just hit weld, and that, where those lines were meeting, it would just weld everything together and then subtract this top layer through. Or you can do both, and that will trim but not actually weld those two pieces together. The first box is just for weld. So if you don't have that if you don't have remove shape selected, that would, now again, if I put like a background on here now, you see that this white layer is here. But this would, well, and now it's going to weld all that together, so I don't want to keep that box there. But so let's see if I keep that color, if it will still subtract it through. Yeah. So where that yellow was, that's completely removed, and then it still welds the two objects behind it. So any questions on any of the tools we covered so far? Sweet. Moving along today. The contour option, that's the one that removed the area around it. So when we did the contour option, that's because I haven't asked any questions today. That's good, Karen. So on this one, that's when we have the contour selected, that's going to trim the area around it. So that's what that button's for, or option's for. The weld by itself won't trim it, like this area around it. Alright, sweet. So let's go over to the edit tab. So when you start, or when you first look at the edit tab, it's going to look just like a lot of buttons that you don't even know where to start with. But a lot of these you might not ever even use. The main ones up top under align, you'll probably only use like the first couple, which is the align everything center and middle, or the align center. Or maybe align everything to the left or the right. So those are the basic ones there. But But if you're, if you're working with different objects or anything like that, when you had them set, you could just align everything to the center and middle, or if you just wanted them aligned centered, it would just kind of move them like that so they're centered together. So when I'm building like live templates, like last night in the premium webinar for the YouTube and stuff, I kept centering stuff. Sometimes I would use this, sometimes I would just use the shortcut in Corel, which is the letter P, and that centers everything to your workspace page. Now then I would still have to kind of like move my objects either up and down, and that's when you'd hold shift, and that keeps it like perfectly in line. Alright, same thing with the guides. I really never use the guides too much, but those are just going to put guides around like the edges of your design, so you have the left and right, top and bottom, or more of like the center. Most of the time I don't really use these, and if I do, it's something very quick just to kind of make sure it's on the same line, but most of the time we're really not using these guides too much either. And then to get rid of them, you just click on it, you'll see it highlight red, and then I'm just hitting delete. So when you select it, it turns red, and then I just drop it. Alright, you can also pull guides in from the left and right. So the one I have selected turns red. Otherwise they'll both be like blue like that. So these rulers around the edges, if you left click and hold, you can actually just drag and drop your own guidelines. Alright, so the next one is our text spacing. Now we do use this one quite a bit. So just even kind of like I did with that soccer text a minute ago. So when we're working with the text spacing, you have a couple different options. One, you can hit the letters TS, and then you'll see these two boxes that show up under, or you'll see a box underneath, and that represents one for each letter. So this is the E, this is the R. Now these other two kind of boxes or lines you'll see, one has an arrow going out to the right, one has an arrow going down. So this one going to the right, I can space out my letters closer together by pulling them to the left, or I can space them even more by pulling to the right. Or I can select just one of the dots, and I can move that letter around however I want. So I could grab this C and I could move this one down. I could move this, grab this dot, move this C up. So you kind of have, can move around the letters however you'd like to. Lastly, we have the buttons inside of it. So like if we already have a live text set up and we want to move the character spacing, that's when you can use these buttons here. And this one decreases the character spacing, so all your letters are going to get moved in closer together. The one next to it would increase the spacing between each letter. Now, you will have the arrows going up and down, or like, down and up towards each other and down and up away from each other. That's if you're ever working with a vertical text like this. And again, if you hit the TS, this is where the left side, where you have the arrow going down, you can control your vertical text with this one. The one going to the left and right won't do anything now because the text is vertical, so we'd use this one here. Alright, to get it back, you just hit the V again, and that will bring it back here. Alright, so how is the text effects or the text spacing affected by the B button? So the B button up top here would breaks apart each letter, each letter in the word soccer. So now the S, I can move freely. The O, I can move freely. The C, everything I can move freely now. So at this point, if I selected the S and I, tried to do anything with the text effect, it's not really going to do anything because it's only one letter. But when you hit the B, that allows you to just manually move the letters too. So if it's easier to do it that way, it kind of gives you multiple ways to adjust your text, especially like the script fonts. So usually when I'm working like a script font with like even like this Flutter font here with like the word soccer, I would typically hit the B, and that would break each, or not, it would just break apart the word, and I can manually move each letter now. So I would do it that way so I can kind of line these up a little bit nicer. All right, so the nudge and copy selected, those are pretty much just, the nudge will literally just nudge over whatever you have selected. So it's almost like using your keyboard, the arrow keys. It's going to be pretty much doing the same thing. So you can hold the arrow keys, or you can just hold, the nudge in any direction. Same with the copy selected. That's just going to make a copy of whatever you have selected, so that makes it pretty easy to understand what that tool does. If you wanted to go down, you could make a selection just like that. All right, so the fill between two, we've used this a couple times, but this can be used for rhinestones. It can be used with other objects too. So if I wanted, if I had a couple stars and I wanted this area underneath just completely filled with stars, but I don't want to have to, kind of guess, okay, that one there, that one there, that one there. Or even, possibly use the copy selected. It's a lot easier if we just select the 2 points, the start and the end point, fill between two. That's going to put it all in a line and fill that object, with whatever object you have there. And then once it's selected like that, I can come in here with my down arrows and take out as many as I want. So if I wanted a bunch, I can keep that. If I need less, I can just click the down arrow until maybe I just want 5 stars going across. All right, now this does generate a path between them all. I can move this. You can move your start or end star. So if I move this one up, you'll see how it keeps the path between them, and it moves the other stars with it. So to break that, you'll need to select like any of the middle stars. That's going to select them all, and then you're just going to hit clear pass, and that will, now these all just kind of move freely, and if you do move them, they're not all going to move together. So that's I like that button a lot, especially like when we're designing or creating designs from scratch. We're going to use that fill between a lot. What about the selection area? We're really not, you're probably not going to do much with these here. The other one is just left click to add selection, right click to select all. This one, select all the stones between 2 points in a path. So that one sometimes will work well if you have like a lot of stones and you just want to select to the outside points and select everything in between. That's what this button's going to be for. We really won't use this draw a curve on a path to select stones a lot. And then this one here, invert the current selection. Usually what that would do, if I have this selected, it will select everything else on my page. So we don't use those too much. The only one we might, use the most is the select all between 2 points on a path, or this invert selection. So if I have everything selected and I want to change this color, and then I have this other piece, I can just click that, revert back to this one, and then I can change the color to that. Yeah, so the invert selection one's actually a pretty cool feature. So let's say you have a bunch of stones on a design, you want to change all one color, and then you want to select everything else. You can just, once you have, let's say I'm changing all these every other color to red or orange, and then I want to select, or I didn't do every other color, or every other one. So you can make those orange. And because I already have those 3 selected, instead of going back to, start over and selecting these 3 now, when you have these 3 selected, you can just do invert, and then it would select everything else that's not selected, and I could come in and just, change the color really quick. So that one's a nice feature for the selection. All right, so let's go ahead and just weld all this together so it's one color, and then we can show the next feature, which is our split feature. So this is what we were talking about a little bit earlier. The split feature, when we left click, and you can hover over to see what it does, but down here it will tell us left click does a vertical, right click does a horizontal. So if I left click this button, it's going to find the middle point of my design and do a vertical split. Again, if I hover over, if I do a right click, it's going to find the middle point of my design and split that in half. All right. So this is where this button can sometimes get confusing. It finds the highest and lowest point on your design. So I'm going to use our guidelines. And so the S, the top point, comes up top here. The R, the bottom point, comes down here. So it finds the middle distance between this line, and it cuts our design in half and makes it 2 color. So it might look like, the bottom half is mostly, covers most of our lowercase letters. It's only like these little top pieces. That's because the S is so tall, and then the R goes down way over here on just the R. So it kind of throws it off a little bit. But this line right here is the middle point of this S and the bottom of this R. This is not a text anymore. So this will convert it to curves. But what's cool about this feature is I have the purple selected, and it actually goes underneath the orange just a little bit. That way it gives us like a little bit of wiggle room for error. So if there were any misses on the overlaps, it helps kind of make sure that t-shirt isn't showing through. So yeah, this is going to look a lot better. Like if you let's do Eagles, uppercase, and like a college font like this. So once I have this set up here, I'll right click the split feature, and that will just split it in half, just like that. So if you want like a more diagonal split coming through, this way, that's when you're going to select your design. You can rotate it. Let's start with 15. So I'll rotate it like that. I'll right click. And now you can see how it split my design. So to get it back, since I rotated it 15 degrees, I'm just going to type -15, and it'll move it back to being lined up perfectly. we could knock out on the top too, right? I'm not sure what you mean by that one. So right now it has like that overlap to help us, you know, make sure we're lining it up better. Oh, could you add a knockout to this? Technically, yeah, you could, but you probably would want to do that after you apply the split feature. But you can, like, with some of these designs too, you can like kind of manually move it or kind of skew it like this, and it kind of gives it like that shattered or broken look, you know, too. So we'll see that used sometimes. And what's nice is you can, you know, I've already moved it, but if I rotated this 15, seems like it was more than last time, but oh, because let me move it back here. So we'll go to 15. I can take this part here, right click it again, and then take this bottom part, right click it again. Negative 15. Oh. There we go. And now this part is split, and then this part is split. And you'd want to do it all at the same time. That's why mine are a little bit off like this. But you can keep splitting it like as many times as you wanted. Alright. So we went over the knockout already. We went over the magic trap when we were getting, you know, the first day when we were getting designs cut ready. We covered the magic trap quite a bit. Alright, so underneath that, to get the diagonal split, you just rotate it 15 degrees. So like when your design's here, or when you have your design set like this, you would just highlight it. And I like to type, so let me weld this back together so it's one. I like to actually manually type 15, because if you try to rotate it yourself, just by doing it this way, you'll get like 22.04, like little things like that, where just 15 makes it perfect, because once I right click the split feature, now when I highlight it, I just know I have to type in the negative of this number I just did. So negative 15, and then it moves perfectly back. And you can go more than 15 degrees like in the turn, but whatever number you turn it at, so like if you do negative 50, you want to do, you know, rotate it back 50, and it's, let me go back to where it's, here we go. All right. So if you were to go 50, rotate it that way, you could apply the split, and then you would just type negative 50, and it should go back, I think, once we add the split. So now when I do negative 50, it'll go back. Alright, so by changing your degree, that's where you'll get different lines kind of going through your design, or different angles. Alright, so next we have a couple tools down here. So here, this adds lines for easy weeding. So this box here would add a weed box, but also add lines in between the letters, just to make it a little bit easier to help weed those out. I typically don't use this too much, but if you're having trouble with like inside cavities not, or maybe pulling up or anything like that, this just adds like a little cut line in between the middle parts too. So that would be almost like the weed box that would cut around it, but it just helps with getting all these little pieces out, or it can. Alright, so next we have the punch through. So if we had a box around our design like this, the punch through would just, you know, any object behind it, we could just punch those letters right through it. So the punch through, it's a cool little feature, but at the same time, when I just punch those through, especially like on an object like this, oops, just hit the mirror. Like I could have just selected the eagles in the box and a back minus front, and it would have done that all at once. So that's where sometimes like the punch through might not necessarily be a time saver, but if it's just like one object or something like that, it could possibly help with those. All right. And then the M is just mirroring it, but it makes a copy too. So even though it mirrors it, it'll still make a copy of your design, so it doesn't it keeps the original. Now the next one is the reverse weed, and this is actually a pretty cool feature itself. So let's go ahead and retype eagles. And I'm going to kind of skew it just a little like that. But the reverse weed will put like a box around your design and then pull those inside cavities out. But you can actually right click this button and you'll see enter the reverse weed tolerance. So I have negative 0.02 here. So if I just change that to 0.2, instead you don't get the box around it, but it trims that eagles through, like it puts it more of like a box, not all the way around it, so these edges don't actually have anything underneath them. Like it's not inside a box now. So that's kind of like your finished design would just be this piece here. So if you put like a, you know, your garment behind it, it would look something like that. Let's get these guidelines out of the way. All right, so you can adjust the tolerance by right-clicking that button. And so if you want, you know, less, if you want more of a, if you want it inside a box, you'll make this number negative. But the less of the box you want, you'll make this number bigger and bigger. All right, so the next ones, we don't really need to worry about those. Now these here are for the power clipping. So we have the power clipping, we're not going to get into today. The next thing we're going to kind of finish with is our magic patterns. All right, so have we used the magic patterns before? Now you're going to get if you haven't like purchased any additional ones, and if you come up top here to the drop down or the drop, like this drop down box, you'll actually see the magic patterns in here too. So this makes it a little bit easier to view them. But these are going to be our patterns here. So just ignore the top two. I was kind of like messing around trying to see if we could add them, but it's too much of a process. And they didn't work correctly. But you'll get the basic like heart, circles, and stars. The other ones, if you want them, you'll just purchase them from the site. So we have like different ones like the Quake. We have some animal prints, and then we have some sports, some holidays, some just like paisley designs, some dog, animal ones, some more sports, holiday, religion. So we have a bunch of them. All right, so with the magic patterns, when we're using a magic pattern, type out like Seminoles. So a design like this, if I want to do maybe a distressed look to this text, once I have this typed out, I just hit distress 1, and it'll add that distressed look through our entire design. And now what's really cool about the way we set this up is this is just like a left to right weed. So, or right to left. There's no little cavities that wouldn't come out. You just pull it all across, and it'll just, go pull it all at once. Can you do different colors in the distress? So with that, at this point, if you did break curve apart, it should, yeah, it's going to separate everything for us. So then I could like highlight the S, and I could make that one color, make this another color, or I could do it, all that's blue, all that's green, all that's purple. You could do it each way. Alright. Now usually when I'm applying magic patterns, what I like to do is create a contour first around my design. So just something like this, and then I'll break that apart. So I'm just kind of releasing the contour, so it's its own object now. And this helps give it like a background color. So now if I select the Seminoles text and I do that distress look, it keeps a background color behind it, which usually makes it kind of like pop a little bit more. All right, so, and there's, this pattern works pretty easy, or looks pretty nice in either setup, with or without a background. But some of the other ones don't always look as good without a background color. So like if I got into, let's say like this football one's now, let's say it's Seminoles football. So this is also how the patterns will work. So my text right now is 13 inches wide. I'm selecting Seminoles text, selecting the football, and that's going to knock out footballs all through my text. So when I change this to a different color, see how it's kind of hard to actually read what it's saying? And even if we kind of switch this up maybe to like a darker inside color, it's actually probably harder to read that way. But see how we can't really see what it says? And that would actually even be harder if we didn't have a background color. So with this type of pattern, we'd actually want to make our design a little bit bigger to begin with. Even though it's 74 inches, that's okay. Once I add the pattern now, and it might take a little bit longer because the design's bigger. So now it adds the pattern there. And now it makes it a little bit easier to read it, right? So I actually probably made this a little bit too big, but once it's done I can resize it, because these are probably going to be a little bit too much for the cutter. So I'd probably want to go closer to like 30 inches, maybe 40 instead of 70. But the bigger your design is, the more it will capture of the actual pattern we're using. There's no way to change the pattern direction or size. The only way to change the size or like how much you see in it is by adjusting like the size of your design this way. So again, if I made it closer to like 30 and then use this football 5, this will probably be like a good happy medium between where you can still read Seminoles, but your cutter will still be able to make, you know, those intricate cuts. And same thing, yeah, I was just about to say, you could technically like rotate your text like we did with the split before you added the pattern to possibly get like maybe a little bit different look on it. So if you like rotate it, and you probably still want to do it this way, where maybe do it like 90 degrees, or, you know, just know the degrees you're turning it, you might get like a little bit of a different pattern layout that way. But it's not going to change, you know, too much of the design. Could you rotate the word before distressing, say, and then rotate back? Yeah, so if you wanted the distress pattern to go like that way, you could definitely add the distress so it goes, you know, vertical, and then just rotate that back, and then that would, you know, really change that look a little bit more. But with like the footballs, how it's just like a random pattern, that's not going to change that much. But yeah, if you have like vertical lines and you rotate it, it's, you know, that will make it look a lot different. Yeah, so the distress is one of the patterns that you could get like a different, you know, if you rotate it 45, it'd be more of like a diagonal stress. So that's, you know, anything that has lines like going left to right, that's definitely a possibility. So let's go back. So yeah, if we did 45, hit the distress pattern. Come on. And then rotate it back. And then now you'll see how it's going in that more of like diagonal. So anything like that will definitely, you know, adjust the pattern. But when it's just like a random scatter or anything like that of different designs, it's not going to, you know, change it around too much. The font I use right there is called Luckiest Guy. So let's go back. Alright, so yeah, that pretty much finishes up the edit tab for us. Do we have any additional questions on, you know, anything we covered today? I think that wraps up a lot of the overview too. We did have a question. So 3 and 4 should be, or 3 should be listed on YouTube. I'll double check on that one after. 4, literally, I've had some issues with it, but I'll show you guys the progress right now with that. Oh, did that mean? Alright, sweet. So it has finally rendered. This was the video right here, so I'll go ahead and have that now. So I'll list 4. I can only find 1 and 2. Okay, maybe 3 is still somehow unlisted. I know it's up. I know it's on there, so it maybe somehow went to unlisted for some reason instead of public. But I'll look at that now. And then 4 has just finally rendered out, so I can get that up today too. So 3 and 4 will definitely be up today. Anyone that was at the premium webinar yesterday, that will be up later today. And then 5, I'll start the rendering process now. Hopefully, the issue is resolved and shouldn't affect like the 4 was, how it took a long time. That should be good to go now. So this hopefully will be up today too. All right, so we'll be doing some more free webinars next week too. Maybe more specific to maybe like building live templates or edit, stuff like that. Still somewhat of an overview, but maybe get a little bit more into the designing now with it. So I'll have those listed on Monday for the week, and then we'll go from there. But we'll still have the Monday, still have the Thursday, and then we'll just sprinkle in some trainings in there too. All right. Is the events pack on sale a super important one to have, do you think? I really like that events pack. Not only for the live templates, but I like the clip art in there a lot too. You can do a lot with the events clip art, like building your own and stuff like that. And with the sale that it's on right now, I think it's like $150 off, and then plus 65% of that. So I mean, I think you're kind of close to about $70 at that point, which for a pack like that's a pretty good deal. But just check out the templates too, see if it's something that you'd be interested. It covers everything too, from like summer vacation, lake vacations, to family reunions, to just parties in general, to bachelorette. So that's why I like it too. It just covers a lot, and those are like, those are those type of designs, the events pack, that don't really have to be over complicated either. Like, it can be a simple one color design, because those bachelorette parties, you're really not, after the weekend itself, you might wear it around the house, just as an extra shirt. So it's not like something, but they're super popular, same with like the reunions, you might wear that one a little bit more than just one weekend, but most of the time it's something special for that weekend or that week, whatever, that vacation. But after that, it might just become like a shirt that you wear doing chores around the house or mowing the yard, stuff like that. But they're popular designs, stuff that those type of events, maybe not right now, are going on as much, just with everything happening. But it's just, I like it just because who hasn't been to a family reunion, who hasn't been to those type, there's always those events, I feel like, that are just really popular, that everyone seems to go to, and you want something to kind of remember it from, make it a little bit special. So just, it's a good pack to have, in my opinion. And like I said, the clip art itself, kind of pull it up here. I've built, in a lot of those designs, or like designing with Sean, like the premium webinar ones, I built a lot of designs or templates just based on the clip art from the events pack. So this is the clip art. So, again, you have the ribbons, the banners, which are nice. You have the sunglasses, the grill, some beer, some campers, some arrows, some more camping stuff, mountains. You have your trees, your champagne, some more just layouts for your design, banner layouts. You have your diamonds, some dice, And then again, just like little things like these to help build designs around your lips, some more cocktails, some mountains, you know, just a lot of random stuff that we can do a lot with. Here's your family reunion trees, some more banners slash like birthday themed stuff. So I like this pack a lot. This is the Events Live template pack. This is just the clip art, and then the templates that will be with this one are going to be these ones here. So again, these are just all types of camping, reunion, bride and groom, bachelor, bachelorette. So these are actually like the templates you'll get in this pack. All right, but right now on the site, if you go to the main page, you'll see it right here. Again, it's listed at $200 right now. It's $150 off. After tonight, this will go back up to, I believe it was, yeah, so it was $350. So it'll go back to $350 after tonight. You'll still get it for 65% off, but you know you're gonna lose a big chunk of that discount. So each like Monday and Thursday, we're kind of highlighting a new pack each time. So that one you can find right here. And don't forget too, under the featured Design a Day giveaway, you'll have the 2 freebies that are up for today and yesterday. Alright guys, well you have a great weekend. If there's any fathers out there, happy Father's Day. And then I'll see you guys probably, I think either Tuesday or Wednesday next week. I'll be doing another webinar. So I'll definitely have that listed by Monday. And if not, you know, have a great weekend. And thank you so much for coming.